Let's get the show on the road, shall we? Back for another work in progress Wednesday. What? How we all doing? Everyone having a good time? We're just gonna jump on over to the main screen. Let me see if I'm set up correctly, right? I was dragging in all the images, making sure that we had everything set up. Let's make sure we do. Then we'll get the show on the road. Ba-ba-bam. All right, awesome. I can see that people in the community chat are watching in. So hi guys. How we all doing? I didn't make a post on socials, but that's all right. Gonna keep it chill to ourselves. All's doing good. It's awesome. Make sure that we got the pen set up. There we go. 6 minutes. Busy day, busy day. I was trying to figure out what was going wrong with my trees in the background. And it kind of took me a little bit longer, but I got it fixed in the end. So that's why I'm a little bit late. But all good. We're here. That's all that matters. We're gonna start out today with Nicole. Gonna have a look at Nicole's work. Just completed the team challenge, by the way. Great job on that too. Nicole is asking for some feedback on the composition and the scale of the scene. It's kind of hoping for an interior diorama. But like to keep the piece nice and interesting without making it too large. Yeah, and from the study I can see here, like, there's a lot of stuff already happening, so I think definitely managing that. Also open to any other feedback at this stage. Still not 100% certain what kind of stylized look I'm going for. Possibly similar to Spyro. Okay. Yeah, cool. So, composition and scale of the scene. All right, let's have a look at that first then. I think honestly there's nothing composition right now. Yeah, if you're sticking with like the focal point being the window and then you probably got some nice sunlight coming in, grab the focal point and that like lights up the rest of the room. It's gonna look awesome. I think the focal point very straightforward, but it could be good. Right, and then you have like a bunch of interesting props here. I think honestly you can probably condense this side of it even more. You could probably, like, if this would be the edge of the room, you could probably cut it off like even closer, you know? Do like a room that's like that. Reason why I say this is because this stuff is just filler, right? And you could kind of just move this stack of books over here. Boonk. Gonna have like all the books scattered on the floor here. And then potentially, yeah, you don't really need some of this stuff. Gonna make the dimensions of the room a little bit weird though, so maybe, okay, I see what you're doing here. Yeah, and to be honest, like if you're making the books, Maybe it is good to keep it to this dimension. It has like a nice kind of shape to it. If you cut it off, then it's kind of gonna look weird again. Maybe let's just go back on that. Yeah, I was trying to just save you some time, right? But if you're gonna be smart with this, and if you're gonna have a lot of reuse in this scene, there's a whole lot of stuff that you can do with the books, like having them over here on the shelves as well. Just to help fill the scene up way quicker. Could definitely be helpful. So yeah. Reuse models, right? As much as possible. But yeah, on the composition side, I don't think you're gonna have to do too much, honestly, to make this look good. It is fairly straightforward, but that's why it works, you know? Simple. Kind of thinking, you got nice open space. Yeah. Maybe you could add like a nice piece of carpet or something. I don't know what you're gonna do with the floor. Yeah. This piece of carpet, maybe like slightly off angle. Again, not really a major concern for the composition, but could add some like a nice little interesting point on the floor itself. And yeah, proportions feel good as well. I think you that's why you got to figure out the type of stylization you're going to do, right? Because that's going to change the proportions depending on how exaggerated the shapes are going to be. So definitely keep that in mind as you're choosing the style of topology, the style of stylization. So the stylization is going to lead into the proportion side of things. Yeah. Nice stuff though. Yeah, I think for a block out feels very solid already. It's going to be interesting. The only thing that could be interesting is think about what you're going to do with this little section here, and maybe as an extent of it, like also this little section here, where you have, because you're basically going to show like the floor, right? But then it will maybe be nice to continue it here because you have the staircase leading up to it as well. And maybe do something with the wooden pillars where they kind of continue on down with the staircase a little bit, so that this space is a bit more filled up, so that you don't have like a staircase just hanging from the edge. And then maybe what I was thinking here is that you can maybe have like a dynamic edge, like a dynamic cutout, which could just be like a little bit of like a wall or something like that, right? Where it's kind of fallen away. Be like an interesting visual that you can play with, just to fill the space up, and that it doesn't feel like the staircase is just hanging on for dear life. Right? You can maybe do like a little pull here. Well, that would be the wall, right? So maybe that wouldn't really be necessary. Maybe you can do like a cutaway like pillar. Might look a little bit weird. Just trying to continue the style that you have here, right? Like these pillars, and just continue the wall, but also have like a little cutaway section. So that it doesn't obscure like the vision of it. Hi Corey, how's it going? Yeah, that might be an interesting thing to play around with, right? Like, try it in the block out, see what that gives you. Could be interesting. Because it's gonna make the whole scene more dynamic, right? It's kind of what they're doing here in the ref as well. Where the wall still continues, but they can't have it like all the way up because that would obscure like the vision of the entire thing. So they kind of do this like neat little cutout trick. You still have the wall visible, but they, yeah, they still have the wall there, but it's cut out, right? Same for this side as well. So you can kind of apply that to your little scene too. Just to refine that edge a little bit, and then you can possibly do the same over here as well. You just have like the pillars like still sticking out. And depends what kind of style you want to go for. Maybe you can do like a clean cutout, right? Where like you show a bit of the wall. Or you can do like a very chaotic cutout where you have like pieces that go up. Like kind of add this like whole dynamic frame to it. Could also be an interesting approach by itself. Right, so it kind of leads into each other. Hey Nicole, how are you doing? Good to have you here as well. We're just talking about like how you could better the framing on this, because you have this kind of staircase that's like hanging on for dear life, and I kind of was looking for a solution to solve that problem, right? That problem of it just being hanging on. You could almost like continue the frame, but you can actually look through the geometry as you're going into it, right? Kind of the same approach as happening here, where you have a cutout of the wall, and you're looking into the frame, and then you can decide to have a clean cutout versus like a more chaotic. What's the... Alright, chaotic. A chaotic cutout. Like the Sims cutout, but chaotic. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, you get to decide how heavy you want to go into this, right? But I think it could be cool nonetheless to have some sort of cutout. Could be very interesting, and then maybe, yeah, you can play around with it, right? Like, you could maybe even have like the room continue here, so you would have like a cross section here. The beam would be roughly here. Just remove all the lines. Yeah, you could technically do something like this where the wall still continues, right? The pillars stick out from underneath the walls again. Yeah, and it's gonna bring the whole scene. It's gonna give it like its own little character, right? By just doing that. And it also solves the issue of like the floating staircase just being there, you know? It's yeah. Cutout edge could be cool to look into. And then yeah, like we've got a little rug over here as well to maybe fill out the floor a little bit. Because you're probably gonna have like, I don't know, some nice wooden flooring or something, and then having like a little rug on top of it could be quite nice. Just to give it more like a dynamic angle, right? And you can do like a lot of cool stuff with a rug, like pull up the edges and stuff to give it more character too. Kind of deviating from what you were asking in the beginning, but because I think the composition and the scale of the scene actually feels really solid already at this point. Yeah, but didn't really have anything to add on those points. Yeah, That the main thing that I brought up before was also to reuse the models as much as possible. Because technically you only have to make like 3, let's say 3 bottles. 3 bottles, like let's say 3 to 4, right? 3 to 5. Use some leeway. Planning on the carpet too? Hell yeah! Nothing wrong with a magic floating stairs. Well, look, if you go down the whole magic route, you can make anything happen, right? Like the whole thing is going to be floating at that point. But yeah, just being smart with the reuse. Like a couple of bottles is all you need. Like a couple of books, and then you can just scatter them around, right? Like it's gonna be amazing because you only need to have like a couple of variations, and you could even go further and use tinting inside of Unreal. In Unreal, right? Which is basically overlaying a color on top of your color already. Usually the base color for this would be white, because then you can overlay any color and it kind of gives that color by just doing it in Unreal, right? But in that respect, you could have like infinite variations and just like recolor them inside of the engine, right? And just make it look like very splayed out, and like scale them up and rotate them, and you can get like a lot of variation with that. It's gonna be awesome. You're gonna be as lazy as possible, so you're using the assets, a beautiful solution. Hell yeah. Yeah, you can do a lot with reuse here. I would honestly, if we're kind of looking at this shop, right? Like, this is probably gonna be your focal point over here. Okay, let's get rid of this. This whole area is probably gonna be your focal point. Right? Reason why I say so is because you're gonna have light coming in through here, so you probably want to invest like the most amount of time here and make most of these assets like by hand, right? And then the rest of it you could kind of reuse, right? Like you could even make like a table and then cut out this section over here, and then you have this table as well, right? You could get like a lot of easy wins with those kind of thinking. Yeah, with the pretty shadow. Yeah, this is gonna look awesome. And then you're gonna have like the light bouncing off of the glass, and it's gonna look so good. Love it. So yeah, awesome. Think about the approach that you're gonna take. I would probably do like a trim sheet for like the majority of the architecture, right? So that you have the flexibility to change it whenever you want. And yeah, potentially, I'm trying to think, because you could do all the wooden pieces with a trim sheet as well, but I think that's going too far. So like having like the trim sheet approach for like the architecture itself, and then the rest of it you could take your time and make them like nicely handcrafted assets. It's gonna be nice. Yeah, this is gonna be awesome. This little corner here is gonna look so good. Let's have a look at some of the references that you put up here. Oh, that's nice. Some foliage is always good to break up the scene as well. Oh, especially around like the window area, some foliage. Ooh, gonna look nice. Could be nice. I don't know if you want to do foliage. I don't know if you're comfortable with that, but that could be like the perfect. Man, you could almost do. Let me see. How are we gonna do this? You could almost have Yeah. Okay, cool. I see what you're doing here. I was wondering what these little wires were. That makes sense. So I love that idea. What I would do is potentially push all the herbs like over here. Right? So you have like all the herbs hanging on this side. Maybe even continue like a little bit further. Right? And then you could have like one of those cute hanging plant pots over here. And then maybe there's like some stuff growing out of it and it kind of drapes along the desk itself. It could be cool. Just spitting ideas here, you know? Just break it up a little bit. That's also going to look really nice if the sun is shining directly on it. Kind of makes sense logically as well, right? Or you could even, if it's all about herbs, yeah, you do a herb kind of thing. I was kind of thinking about adding something on the side, but I think a hanging pot like that is nicer. It has that cutesy vibe, you know? Like instead of being like very rigid and having like, I don't know, plants like in little trays on the wall here. I don't know. I think a cute hanging plant pot could be better. Cute plant. The thing you have to be careful of, I've kind of overdone it. So it was like a good indication of what you don't want to do is you don't want to obscure like the entire view of the window because that's going to look so good with the light like pouring in. So you probably want to kind of condense it to like one side or maybe even have like smaller stuff in the middle and then keep most of it like still open so that the sun can like pour in through it. Just in terms of like composition, right? So that you don't obscure like the entire thing. Paul is saying, or vines. Yeah. Creeping vines on the outside. Yeah, that could be cool. To have like a little bit of stuff like poking through. Yeah, or like maybe even like slightly hanging. Yeah, that could be cool. Yeah, leaving you some flowing space on the inside to control the lighting more. Yeah. Love that. Yeah, that's the thing. Like once you got these things all in, like in a quick blockout stage, you can just like move them around and see where it's going, right? The thing that you need to keep in mind as well is with all this detail, a lot of the focus is going to go on this side, right? So, which is good, right? Because you want the focus to kind of go here. You just got to be careful that the other side is not gonna suffer, or like in terms of like the interest in the amount of detail, right? I think it's totally fine to have your composition mainly go here and then have this like more obscured and like darker so that you kind of have to look through it. I don't think that's like a big deal. Just something to be aware of, that the more detail you cram into a space, the more it's going to ask for your attention as well. But yeah, this is awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing this come together, Nicole. This is awesome. Yeah, cute plant. Dunk. Nice one. Amazing stuff, Nicole. Really looking forward to how this is going to come together. You got some interesting references here as well. My best. We'll play with the block out soon. Hell yeah! Looking forward to it. And yeah, thanks for putting your work up for feedback as well. Appreciate that. And good luck. Next up, We got Alexia. Let me have a look at the post here. No worries, Nicole. I was wondering if I could get some feedback on my environment. I believe I'm done, but I was thinking maybe you guys could find anything I could change before finally submitting. And the concept is by Alexander... lost it. Alexander Belentiev. This is awesome. It's the whole vibe of it. I love it. Yeah, I think... So this is one thing that I was feeling before looking at the concept even, is that the lighting, you can win like a lot with just the lighting alone. Because I think... Let's have a look. Let me see if I can kind of figure out the lighting scheme here. There is a light coming from the back of this, which doesn't really make that much sense. If you think about lighting, like it's there to emphasize something important, right? Or especially in this case where it's like a throne room, the most important place in the entire throne room is going to be the throne itself. So to highlight the person of importance, you're going to probably have like light coming down from it, right? Which is also kind of reflected in the concept here, where you have like light coming from the ceiling, shining down onto the throne room. And the rest of it is kind of like in contrast. So it kind of creates this like very, what is it? Like very suppressive kind of atmosphere, right? Because you have that stark contrast that you have to listen to the person that's in charge here, right? Kind of the vibe that it's setting up. Whereas this, if you look at it, like the whole place is almost evenly lit and there's no contrast. Or for the most part, in the main part, there's no contrast, I should say, because you do have contrast on the pillars. But what you actually want to do is increase that contrast inside of the main area, like the concept is doing. Let's see if we can quickly do that on one of these images. That's this one, right? It's making it lighter. Right, so I'm kind of just gonna mimic like the whole setup that we have in the concept. Just really quick and dirty over paint. Right, you're basically canceling out everything that you don't want to see. And then let's see. Probably if we soften it up, it's gonna look like even nicer. Right, so the light is coming from above, kind of shining on this. And then what we're getting here is the comparison between the floor is actually the main focal point because it's so light compared to this, where the focal point is on like the stuff in the background, you know? That's kind of what the whole interpretation of the scene is. So let's actually put them side by side so that we can see what's happening here. Right? Kind of see very clearly what we're doing with that. Like it kind of gets back like the whole mood that the concept was really good in. And then also what was really interesting in the concept is that a lot of the ambient light is coming from the sides, but there's no actual light in the main room itself. Again, creating this whole like contrast between the main room, which is more in shadow, and then the back room, or like the throne itself, being the spotlight, right? So, let's have a look. So we did actually change from the from the main floor being the focal point. Hey Jill, thanks so much for subscribing. Happy to have you here. So the main floor is going to be the focal point because that's the lightest. Like basically this entire zone is going to draw like a lot of attention to itself without necessarily needing to, right? And we kind of switch that up and we move it from the floor to the actual focal point. Right? So the throne focal point. And then by making the entire room darker again, like we get this oppressive mood back. Right? And if you then apply that to the whole thing, so you basically wanna switch your light that's behind the throne, you wanna kinda move that up to where it's almost casting like a spotlight onto the main throne. Right? That's again looking at the concept art is actually a really good example of that. Also, the two lightning rods, or like the two light rods that they have like next to the throne, are brighter than the rest of them. Right? So that's also a good thing to pay attention to. And it's all that kind of subtle stuff that will lead to like a more cohesive feeling. Rest of it though, I know that we talked a lot about lighting, but I love the response that you're getting on the materials here, and like these pillars look really nice. Oh, I think kind of blew out like all the textures, like the stuff that I did on here, so it kind of looks off. Also, maybe think about changing the floor pattern itself to be a little bit more subtle. That's also going to help because you gotta think about like something that's highly detailed and has a lot of contrast is going to pull a lot of attention to itself. So in this case, we can't really change the details because then we'll need to change like the whole floor pattern to be like a bit more subtle. So we don't want to do that. So instead, what we can do here is to make the contrast less by just diminishing the color that's on it. Quick fix. It's gonna really help massage it into like a more cohesive picture, right? Yeah, I think the lighting itself is gonna make like a huge difference in here. That's honestly the biggest point. I think the rest of it like looks solid. So yeah, great work. Yeah. There's one final thing that I want to say about the lighting itself is think about what kind of let me think about this. Hey Dressy Darrow! Welcome to the community. You're the first member that we had on YouTube. That's awesome. Glad to see you join. What I was saying is you gotta watch out for these specular highlights here, where you kind of want to smooth them out and make them really diffuse. And how you can do that is instead of using point lights, I don't know if you're using point lights or maybe you use like a very long point light or something like that. You actually want to use like rectangular lights and kind of make use of the white walls that you have here to do like the bouncing of the light by itself. So what that means in this case is that you'll probably have maybe a couple, maybe one, like just rectangular lights. Well, maybe we'll switch them around to the other side. Right, so you get these rectangular lights that then cast light on these like white reflective walls, and they then cast this like beautiful ambient light on the entire scene. Could be like a very interesting approach to it. Yeah, you would kind of have like multiple of these, right? Or maybe one big one. I don't know what's going to give you the best result. Maybe multiple ones in this case. And then you would just have them floating above the structure here and then casting onto the white walls and then having them reflect back. It's a very nice way to let the environment art, or like the environment itself, do like most of the work. Are you involved in the Art Station Challenge Medieval Back and Forth? No, I signed up by accident. But Mustache Productions, thanks for asking though. I did sign up, but it was not on purpose. It was by accident, and there's no way to turn it back. So yeah, I'll rectangular lights, right? That's basically what you want to keep in mind here. Rectangular lights, cool. Yeah, by accident. I'm not doing it. I'm already making a medieval scene. Don't need two on my plate. Or I'll literally be working for like a whole decade on them. Yeah, but I think, Alexia, with these changes, like these couple last weeks before you post it, you're gonna have like a way better impact just by these couple little tweaks. So good luck, and let us know if there's anything that we can help you with. Oh, maybe what I'll point out is before and after, right? Before, dunk dunk, and after. Yeah, nice. Good luck with it, Alexia. Let us know if we can help with anything. Next up, we got Mr. G. Mr. G is making a sword. Started out as a demo for some students, but now I'm finishing it up. Would love some feedback. Currently working on the textures for the sword. The last two images are the reference images. Yeah. We've got some people in the chat already giving like, or like in the community chat already giving like really good feedback. Yeah. Crossguard and the pommel have smoother surfaces. The wood is a little less saturated. Yeah. People are making really good points here. Some of the stuff that I wanted to bring up as well. So I would definitely say watch out with the noisiness, right? That's the way that I'll approach it. Is because you have like a lot of noise and generally doesn't look really good. Like you want to have contrast in details. And what I mean by that is that you can have this noise, right? But it can't just be like very uniform because that always looks a little bit off. So what you can do is have it on the edges, right? And then maybe like go bigger and then like condense it again so that you have like some nice variation in it. And then keep the majority here without that noise and go for subtler like color differences and like color variation. And that also makes sense because you're probably going to touch the sides of something more than you do with like the whole underside of things, right? So yeah, that would be something that you can also apply to like all the rest of it, right? Because we're kind of seeing like very noisy patterns return on the handle itself. Again, you can use that same approach by just having noise on like the edges of things or where stuff sticks out more, right? And then keep the rest of it like way more refined and like way more subtle. Like you're probably gonna see here, right? Like this is like very smooth compared to your sword. And if you're using that as a ref, I would love to see like a little bit more like varnished, a varnished look. Plus, it's also gonna look nice because it has more contrast. Like the colors are a little bit more intense, and that's what people are bringing up as well in the community chat as well. That the saturation can also change a lot. Yeah. It's thinking about like how you would use it as well, right? That can give you like a lot of information if you want to add like certain details on top of it. Because dirt, grime, skin oil, like all that stuff is going to gather in places where you're not necessarily cleaning all that often as the majority of the rest of the blade. So you can kind of use that to then also like reinforce the look of things too. Right? So yeah. So a statue rated hilt. Okay. To kind of get it closer to the main ref. And I think the main ref, if we're looking at this, look at the nice color variation that this has. And that's beautiful. Right? And also, you can kind of see, like, this feels more dull than, like, the middle section of it. Might also be a little bit the reflections as well, but I think it still holds true, where like, the stuff on the edges has more scratches on it, and then this is, like, nicely polished. I have a Mustache Productions. I want to get more involved in the art community, but I don't know where to start. Usually, I just post finished work on ArtStation and leave it at that. I would like to know how to get more engaged. You can join Discord servers, right? There's a bunch of open ones. Ours is paid, like through Patreon. There's a bunch of good Discord servers for like most of the art disciplines. We focus on the environment art, so it kind of depends on what you want to do or what kind of art you're interested in. Or just engage with people, like a Discord is not for you, like, or just engage with people like on Twitter, right? Just give compliments, ask how they did stuff, maybe they'll help you, like just start a conversation, you know? There's lots of good ways to get involved. Yeah, we have the contrast here between like more dull and more polished parts of the sword, right? And what we're kind of seeing here is that it's more like a generic kind of approach. Like everything is kind of like the same. It's like the same kind of values, right? Even though like this thing is like one metal, and then the Damascus steel like is one sort of metal, right? But there's no interesting variation in the thing, like in the approach of the texturing. Whereas if you're gonna look at, if you're just gonna look at like the sword itself, there's lots of variation in it. Like even the little bits here where you have thinking about how they mount, like or how they bring this all together. There might be some oils involved here, which is darkening the wood. Same is happening here, right? You have like slight off colors, discoloration on the steel as well. Then the dull part, like there's a lot of details that you can really look into to make it stand out more than it currently does. Yeah, this feels a little bit noisy, right? Yeah, and oftentimes it's like slight variation between things, you know, very slight variations. Yeah, I think we kind of covered like the majority of it, right? I kept it like really broad on purpose. I didn't want to dive too much into the details, but it's like thinking about how to contrast your textures, and then also looking at like all the details and like all the subtle layering that goes on within textures, and like trying to reflect that as good as you can. Right? Even again, if we zoom in on this, like there's discoloration on the wood itself, where this has like some yellow discoloration going on. Then this side is darker. You know, like it's simple, but there's variation going on in it. So yeah, good luck with that, Mr. G. I hope that helped you out. There's a bunch of good stuff written about this already by Ayana and Jono in the chat. So really want to shout out to Ayana and Jono as well for their help in this. Really appreciate this. And yeah, good luck. Next up, we got Manuel. Oh, Manuel, what are you up to? You're making a generator. Generator I'm working on, trying to push it as much as we can. I probably won't have too much to say on this. Very early days, it seems. So I don't know what stage you're at, and I'm probably not going to say too much about it. I'm going to have a quick look at it. Check it out. Yeah, so these are all like different stages. I'm assuming that this is the last stage over here because this has the most detail on top of it. Yeah, the one thing that I'll mention here, since I'm assuming that this is your blockout or like your high poly blockout that you're working on, be careful with these edges over here. Like these sharp edges on high poly, like you want to exaggerate like the high poly bevels a little bit, because even at this size, which is like quite a decent size to be looking at the prop, that bevel is almost just 1 pixel, right? So you kind of want to exaggerate some of the shapes so that they retain the shape for longer. So just increasing the bevel size. Very easy fix. Yeah, you actually always want to make your bevel sizes a little bit bigger than they realistically look, so that they then can get baked down and get retained over a longer space of time, or like a longer distance from the camera. Yeah, same with this stuff over here, right? It kind of has the same kind of issue. We go a little bit bigger with those. Yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna put like a lot of detail like this into it and like the whole thing, I'm excited to see what it's gonna look like, because this, just the modeling itself, like the attention to detail, that we're already getting in just like the main shapes of the component, already looking nice. So I love that. If you're gonna reflect that in like all the other parts of the prop, I think you're on a good track. Cool stuff. This was a quick one, Manuel. There's nothing too much to ask here yet, but yeah, keep us in the loop. I'm looking forward to seeing this come together. Oh, you're in the chat? Hi, Manuel. Yeah, there's not much that I can really add onto this now. I'm just curious to see how the modeling is gonna go for the high poly. So yeah, good luck with it. And then we got route 1 over here. Have a look. Feedback on the rendering, lighting, and the candle. Yeah, for sure. Let's have a look at it. I love the soft rendering that you have going on here. Looks really good. It has like a certain moodiness to it, right? Like it has that certain mood. I think it looks really nice. Very soft also with the materials. It kind of has like a softness just all around it. So lighting is coming together really nicely. Of the lighting. Yeah, and I think also the props getting there, right? Like the attention to detail, like as we spoke before, like just having like the little bit of discoloration on it. Maybe you can push it a little bit more like on the actual seating area, right? But that's some stuff that we discussed in the last time, so we don't have to go too broad into it. But yeah, I honestly love the simple lighting setup here. Very moody. Love it. Heyo, it's route 1. Yeah, good stuff. Push the variation here. Again, just making a note, but that's what we discussed last time, right? And then for the candle, let's have a look. Yeah, looks nice. Don't really... You got that realistic look going on. Like maybe... Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nitpicking, right? But like all these sections, they kind of feel like the same sort of distance. So it kind of feels like very, very made, where you could just like tweak it with like just inflating like a couple more areas and switch that up a little bit. But the main thing that I wanted to bring up is on the actual holder itself. Like it has the old lines, or it actually looks like it still has the old lines of the base geometry built into it, where it didn't smooth those areas out. So be careful with that. I think with a candle holder like this, you could kind of make it look like it's like hammered metal, right? So you can still use it in the future. Just to be aware of these lines going on. You can kind of see the same thing happening here as well, where you can see like the loops still on the thing itself. But again, you can still like sculpt that out. Been ages since I used ZBrush myself as well, but I think there was an option where you can tell it which edge to smooth and which edge to leave alone, but I honestly can't remember. Can't remember what that option was called. The candle is an animated material, but I'm thinking of using Niagara also for the smoke. The reference of the handle, the holder is smooth and more modern, just thought rough it up a bit. Yeah, but you gotta be careful. Like I like the roughing up, right? I like that, but it's just the base geometry is still showing through, right? So you kind of want to avoid that. You can kind of sculpt that out, like I was saying before, but yeah, you can kind of see that here too, right? It still has like the base geometry where it kind of treated like every edge as like a hard edge and it smoothed everything in between and added more geo that way, but you can kind of see that. So next time, oh my god, I'm thinking about what the name is, but I honestly can't remember. There is an option where you can just let it smooth like certain angles. Yeah, you can crease the edge, right? Like that's you can crease these edges where you want them sharp. And then the other ones you leave alone, and then it will like smoothen them out. Thank you so much, AJ, for helping me out there, struggling for a bit. These edges. The round part and the holder of the candle isn't done. Well, you can't say that because you started sculpting on it, right? So you already started working on it. But that's all right. You can sculpt over it. It's a minor thing. It's just mainly for the future. If you have assets that are not as forgivable as this candle holder from like the Viking Age, then that would have been like a bigger issue because it's kind of tricky to like kind of smooth all that out without retaining or like destroying some of the other edges that you have. But yeah, back to what you were saying though. The candle is an animated material, but I'm thinking of the Niagara also with the smoke. Yeah, you could do cool stuff. What you could also do trying to think how I would approach smoke. Kind of depends on how close you want to get and the fidelity of it, because you can definitely use particles, right? But you can also do like a mesh, right? And then like animate or like world position offset, like it has a gradient, so the bottom part isn't gonna move, but like the top part like sways left and right and moves like up and down. So it has like a little bit of like a movement. And then you just have like a smoke trail going up the whole thing and fading out by using the vertex color, for example. So you would just paint like a gradient on top of this, where the top of it would be black, and then it will just fade out the smoke. Could also do that. Honestly, whatever's easiest, you know. It's up to you. Whatever you're more comfortable with. You could do like a smoke mesh plus world position offset plus vertex paint. Or a mask, you know. Do a mask as well. So you could have like a sheet of two smokes that goes straight up, and you just map them on like a warbly shape to give them a shape. And then if you just let them move, I think you can get like some cool effects with that as well. Throwing some ideas out there. Might be interesting. But yeah, good stuff. I love the lighting, man. Very good job on the lighting. I love it. Very soft, very smooth. Yeah, then just having the candle on here, and then probably like a bunch of other props that you're planning. It's gonna look good, man. gonna look good. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for showing. Good luck. Was that it? Wait, let me... So rendering, lighting, and the candle. Yeah, okay. Yeah, good luck. Looking forward to how this is gonna look in a week. Next up, we have Samonth. Did I spell that right? Yeah, Samonth. Samonth was looking for feedback on trim sheet planning and modeling proportions. So, actually, we've written a whole breakdown on how to plan a trim sheet and like all that it entails. So let me just quickly dump that into chat, shall we? I'm gonna make it easy on myself. There we go. Deep dives, trim sheets. Donk. Yeah, no worries. Where's that one? Good to help. So yeah, this is a trim sheet documentation. I'll also link it in the community chat as well, so that you can have a reference to it too. But yeah, it basically goes through all the planning. It would kind of be a waste for me to kind of repeat what's going to be said in that documentation anyway. So yeah, like the quick gist of it is that you want to look at like all the components that you have and like all the scale differences, and then see how many pieces you need within a certain scale margin to fill out the whole space, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say for a quick reference, we have this thick beam over here, right? And then we have some of the smaller beams over here, and then maybe even smaller over here. What you want to do is you don't want to build a texture for this and then scale it up all the way to this, or do the inverse, because that's going to break the texel density. So what you actually want to do is kind of build, depending on the size of these two, maybe you could build one in the middle that kind of serves the two. It depends on how much you want to scale them up, right? But like the gist of it is like, oh, we have like the one small bit, we have the one medium bit, and then we have like the big section, right? So this is 3, this is 2, and this is number 1. And if the scale difference, that's the way that I always look at it, right? Like if the scale difference between this and that is bigger than 25%, then I need to make like a new piece for it. Roughly, right? Like 25% is the measurement that I use. But you can also have more leeway, and it kind of also depends on the texture size too. But that's like a rough measurement that I use. And same here. Like if you need to scale it down more than 25%, then you need like a new piece for that too. Right? But let's say it isn't, you can get away with only making number 2. But if it is, you have to spend space for like 1, 2, and 3 in that case. And what that then looks like is you would have, because you mapped it out horizontally, you would have like number 1, and then this is twice as large, and then number 3. Yep. So this is 3, 2, 1. And then you have like all your wooden pieces for the entire object. Because you know that a lot of this stuff, like this is the smallest. Over here, I can build all this small stuff with. This, I can probably use on like all these slats and like all these wooden beams. And then for the biggest part, I don't actually know if there's like another use case, like on top here. Could maybe use it again. Maybe there's this slat over here as well. You probably know the building better than I do, right? So there might be other opportunities where you want to use it. For example, here, it could be an opportunity for number 3 as well. And that means that at this point, you can kind of build like all the wood on this entire piece. What we didn't keep into account is that we only have one variation of like all of these sizes, right? So in this case, the wood seems to be like fairly generic, like fairly, it seems to be the same wood that we keep using all over, right? So maybe we don't need an additional variation, but if we do, maybe because we don't see that much of like number 3, but we see a lot of number 2. So maybe what we'll do instead is we'll have the same trim sheet, right? And then we'll have number 1, and then we'll have number 2, and then we'll have another number 2, and then we'll have number 3. Right? So these two, number 2, and then you have number 1. And now we know that we have like a little bit of variation built in because we can make these two planks that technically serve the same zone, but we can build in some variation. And keep in mind that some of these, like for example, some of these areas, they might not encapsulate like the whole area here. So what you could do is, let's say this plank occupies this space, right? What we can then do with this one, because it's so close to it, like we can just move it where it occupies like maybe this space, so that it doesn't look like it's the same kind of thing depending on how you textured it, right? So there is some built-in horizontal variation that you can get with trim sheets that you don't necessarily need to use like these variations. Depends on how you use it, right? The best way to test this out is to give it a try, right? Do a quick texturing job and then see how you can use everything and if it's enough for what you need, and then adjust it. And then in this case, because I think, oh, it's on the left here, right? So you're working with like a lot of variation here. This is like a placeholder texture. You gotta look at how much variation of that you need yourself, and then maybe make one trim sheet for wood, and then maybe a second trim sheet for, I don't know, something else like miscellaneous, right? And split it up that way. But yeah, more information on that can be found in like the PDF, or like yeah, it's a PDF as well, like on the website. So feel free to check that out. And proportions, I think the proportions are solid. You know, like looking at the concept, I think you've done a good job of like recreating the whole thing. This is the concept over here. Yeah. Well, now that we're looking at them side by side, you can kind of see, might also be a little bit the lighting as well. That some of these like, what is it, like sticking out windows, for lack of a better name. It might look a little bit bigger in the concept, but yeah. Could be good to do this exercise yourself, having the two screenshots side by side and just comparing them that way. So yeah. Good job. That was a little explanation on how to approach trim sheets as well. Let's see. Grab a sip here. Sending me messages just to make sure that everything's still alright with the stream. Cool. Yeah, so I hope that was helpful, Samonth. I'll post this in the community chat as well, with like the overpaint and with like a little bit of an explanation. So yeah, Looking forward to how this is going to come together. It's a nice concept as well. I like it. Cool. And then I think we got the last one for today, which is Sammy. We looked at this last week as well. And then we kind of have this screenshot now, where before it was a little bit more barren, but now we actually have like some mortar shells. We got like silhouettes of tanks, and we got some smoke in the distance as well. I love the look of this. Love it. Way more atmospheric than it was last time. So already like a really good job on that. But the question actually was, how do I make this look more AAA like? I think if you want to push like the AAA visuals here, it's more about the attention to detail. Right? It's like a good example here is like all this stuff kind of looks the same. And it kind of needs to, right? Because it's mud. But also, if you then start looking at like mud and sand and how the two mix together and like different types of mud, it becomes like really interesting because you can see like a lot of variation in it. The way that I would probably break this down is I would have one generic mud, right? Like one generic mud. Number two would be like mud with footprints. And then maybe three is just going to be either like another variation of the first mud, or maybe something that's a little bit drier, right? And has like more of like a sand kind of feel, or like, I don't know, like partially dried up mud, so that you get like a little bit of like roughness variation. So mud variation plus sand, question mark. And then what you can do is use those different types to start filling out the area and like balance in between them, you know, where one of them is like slightly more rough than the other one, and you're going to create like some nice visual interest on the whole thing. I'll give you like a quick example here where if we take this little overview, right, let me actually get rid of this so I can do like an overpaint here. Terrain looks samey, right? That's what I'll call it. Whoa. And then multiple textures. That's the way that you can kind of break that up. Hi, Luis Alberto. I'm doing good. How are you doing? Just looking at this awesome trench piece that we had a look at last week as well. But yeah, now that we have these three variations, right, we can start playing around with it a little bit more. And I'll do like an overpaint here where let's say my generic mud is probably going to be like this sort of area, right? Or like maybe even right, like around some of these assets. And then the majority of the scene, let me pick like a different color. So let's say this is number 2. And that one, number 3. Oh wait, we kind of screwed it up, right? Oh no, generic mud is good. What we want. And then the mud plus footprints. Again, what I'm trying to do in my head is I'm imagining myself running through a scene like this, and where would I walk, right? Like, you're probably not going to walk like around these shells all too much. People have definitely walked here because they've laid bodies down, right? And then the rest of it, like, it's all just in the chaos. Most of the footpath is just going to be like number 2, right? Like mud and footprints. And then for number 3, what we can do is actually have some of these places where rain is a little bit trickier to seep in, and maybe even use it as like little patches of like variation, you know, like between the two. Right, where it's like a little bit drier, just to create some additional variation. Right, you can kind of see what I'm doing. Like, the main path is going to be the one with the footprints, right? The one with the footprints. And then number 1 is going to be the generic mud, which is sort of the areas that are not frequently traveled. For example, this pothole, right? Like this pothole on the side, and then maybe around some of the edges. And then number 3 can be used to just vary up the two and have like a different blend. And then if you use height maps on top of that to do like blending between the two, you can actually work with like half values or like 0.2 values and kind of have a blend between them, you know, where like the mud goes into the footprints but not actually on the rest of the stuff. You can do some really cool stuff. Maybe, yeah, like, that's the example that I have on hand. This is my scene that I'm working on, and just look at like the variation. So I'm using 2 textures here, right? Where you have like the mud over here with the shiny footprints, and then you have like just sand over here, and you get this like nice variation between the two. Yeah, it's literally just paying attention to like all those little details. And this is only about the terrain, right? So this is mainly focused on the terrain itself. What we can do as well is apply the same sort of stuff with all the assets too. Because a lot of reuse is good, but what you also want to see is uniqueness, right? Like, you've got like these walls of sandbags which look awesome, but then also if you have the sandbags, like make a little like piles of them, right? Like, I think we actually discussed this last time, where you have like a pile of sandbags over here, and then maybe you have like a loose sandbag over here, and it's all adding to the chaos, right? Again, I think we discussed this last time as well. Watch out with this weird looking stuff, because like the planks are literally like not even set in the floor, right? They're just floating. So the reason why I'm pointing all this out is because if the aim is to work for like the big studios and like the one that push out like the big products, you have to have an eye for detail for this stuff. Where, yeah, these floating planks just looks weird, right? Like, got the floating planks. This shot itself can also be like better lit when it comes to the contrast of things, because it is a bit too dark at the moment compared to some of this, where you get like, see a little bit more of it. Yeah. And also, again, thinking about like the atmosphere, right? We got one smoke plume here, but yeah, maybe another one here, but it doesn't add depth to it. Like, you probably want to have like multiple ones in the background, and then like, again, stuff that you already added, right? Like just have like more silhouettes in the background. Try to fill it up, but give it more depth, and pay attention to like all the details. It's rough, yeah. If you want to level it up to the next level, you have to push it to like really pay attention to like all those details. Embed all of it in mud, right? But have it look good as well. You kind of try to do that here with the shells. But if you realize that it doesn't look good, because it kind of doesn't, right? I think this is using RVT to project like the terrain landscape, like the terrain texture on top of the asset. Kind of looks a bit weird. Also because it's projecting from the underside, but you actually want to have like mud and stuff cake on the underside of things, right? Because it's not raining dirt all the time. I mean, it can be with mortar shells and all that stuff. But what you actually would expect is like the dirt and like the moss to kind of, not the moss, like the mud to kind of clump up to the sides of these assets, right? And this is where like these little moss islands, moss, why do I say moss? Like these mud islands keep coming up, right? Because you can kind of use them to like massage assets into the terrain that already exists. You can also use that here, right? Like this edge of this crate, just have like, I don't know, dirt pile up to it. You know, have this thing like partially buried. You can apply that to so many things. So yeah, it's basically like a long-winded way of like really looking at references. So the normal workflow of this is, and it's gonna sound so stupid. Looking at ref, distilling what you want to recreate. So distilling, and then implementing. And this works on like multiple layers. So first we do this on like a big scale, right? And you've done a couple of these passes and you got to this point by probably doing this. But what you actually want to do is no longer look at the bigger picture, but actually go deeper and think about, okay, what if stuff is constantly raining down, right? Like there's going to be stuff scattered all over the place. But it's probably going to be embedded into the sand more than it currently is because people are walking over it, like stuff is raining on top of it, like it's raining, it's going to be muddy. Have even the thought exercise that I'm doing now is like, oh, maybe it would be cool to have like a puddle. You know, just have like this trench going down into a puddle, where like the wooden planks here are like submerged, and that can be like a very interesting thing to just include in a scene. But then you also need to massage that back into the terrain. You can't have what we had before, right? Where you could definitely see like the limitations of the terrain in Unreal. You kind of have to massage it in with like meshes around it then. Hence those little mud islands, right? But yeah, you just gotta keep going deeper and deeper, and then whenever you're done with a layer, like you work your way down to the next layer, right? Like, okay, more details, like more specific things, like how can I create, for example, how can I create like a more interesting look on this wall of sandbags? Maybe one of them is like kind of hanging out more, you know, just to break it up a little bit. Or yeah, kind of, is that what you're doing here? I'm trying to look. Yeah, like how would they use like different types of things to like shore up these walls? And I think you're doing a great job here with like wood, just holding it back, right? It's kind of that, you know? Like, I know that I've been waffling on about it, but it's like eye for detail, right? Like really go deeper into that and like research. It's gonna sound so stupid, but like look at when you're going outside and it's raining, go to a forest. Look at how like mud and sand interact? You know, what's the difference between them? How can you recreate that into your scenes? You know? Might be self-explanatory, but yeah. Research and implementation. Just keep redoing it. Yeah. And also, maybe if you're struggling with the lighting, because I see that the lighting is kind of not really moving in this place particular. Like, you can do so much more interesting stuff here. Maybe ask someone that has lighting experience, you know, to help you out a little bit. That'll be a good shout. Because I'm no lighting expert, I'll say that much. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for posting your work, Sammy. I appreciate it. I hope that this stuff helps. If you need any other stuff, or like if I can help you with anything else, let me know. Also, this bottom shot, love it. Just the mood. Oh, the mood. I kind of wanted to leave it on a high note, but I just noticed that you got like some floating lights up here. It's very faint. I doubt you can even see it on the stream. Yeah. Again, eye for detail, right? Don't wanna have these lights like these smokes. They kind of go up in like a straight thingy. Like, it would be nice to have like a little more dynamic, you know? Okay, anyway, that was it. I love this shot. That's what I wanted to end on. So I'm gonna pretend that we kind of ended on that. This is looking awesome. I love the mood here. So yeah. Amazing job on doing those changes. Keep it up. You're nearly there, Sammy. Cool. I think that's it for this week. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's it for this week. We do have a question in the chat though. I have a Mustache Productions is asking, is 30 years too old to get into the 3D games industry? Nope, totally not. It doesn't matter. As long as your work is good, then you can get in. That's what I love about the industry. I've mentored people that are like way older than I was. I mean, make it sound that I'm that old, but I'm 32. 32, you know? Or 30 as well. So yeah, definitely not too late. I know a bunch of people that got in like way later. Just the work has to be good, you know? And maybe, well, it depends, right? Like, the work has to be good for sure. And then maybe if you want to work for a specific company, you have to be open to relocate. If they don't have hybrid schemes or whatever, right? That might also be the thing. But other than that, there's not much that can get into your way, honestly. Apart from other commitments, of course. Don't know about those. But yeah. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna pop out. I think it's nice to have a shorter one as well, because this week is gonna be freaking busy. So I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so much for popping in, and thanks everyone for dropping the good feedback in the chat as well. And also a shout out for everyone that's helping each other out in our community and like in the work in progress chat as well. So keep that up. I love to see it. Oh, Lewis is asking a last question. Let's end on that. I have my third interview with the studio. I think this is the last one, and it's going to be more about team working. Do you have any advice or core skills to keep in mind when working in a team? Oh, just don't be a dick. You know? Working in a team is actually quite simple, you know? Like, don't be a dick. Try to help out other people as much as possible. Ask questions when you think you need to ask questions. Don't overthink it when you're asking questions as well, right? Like, if you're running into something and you're kind of stuck, just ask a question. Will probably take you like 5 minutes compared to like 2 minutes of struggling. But yeah, that would be it. Like, I wouldn't worry about like the final interview, about like the team fit. Just be yourself, you know. Be yourself. It'll be fine. In most cases. Thanks for that question, Lewis. Yeah, with that, we're gonna pop out. So I wish everyone a nice evening, and I'll see you on Friday for an art stream. You're really nervous? Don't worry, just be yourself. Just be yourself. You're gonna be fine. You'll be fine. They're just people on the other side, like you and me. So yeah, have a nice evening, everyone, and I'll see you on Friday for an art stream. Bye bye.